You're It. I'm Amanda Malcolm, and you're listening to You're It, Girl, a podcast focused on you and what propels you, because that past, it does not define you. Your time is now, and you're it, girl. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to You're It, Girl. Oh my. Some of my listeners, many of my listeners probably know already this fabulous lady sitting next to me, Nicole Myden, the PR queen, who actually helped me come up with the idea for this podcast. Because, what was this, was it 2 years ago?
You came up with the idea. I was just your cheerleader.
You have been the most tremendous cheerleader, but you sat down with me one-on-one when we had talked about me starting a podcast, which was a different idea than how this evolved. But I am so grateful for that meeting. I always look back on it and think about it, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. I wouldn't know Nick, who is Nick Tantillo with Tantillo Productions, who does this whole entire show and makes it look so great for us, because you connected me with him. And so we wouldn't be sitting in the studio in these chairs. So I am so incredibly grateful for you.
I love you. I'm so proud of you. To watch this come to life has been so beautiful, to see you step into this, because you're exactly where you need to be.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And so speaking of you, you've been on quite a journey the last few years. I met you how many years ago?
So I moved from Los Angeles to Scottsdale 7 years ago, and I met you, it was, I think, my second year here when I started doing my PR workshops.
Yes.
And really getting out into the small business owner community. And we met through some mutual friends, and have just been blessed with a beautiful little crew around us.
Yes, we have. It's a great circle.
Yes.
It's a great circle.
We're so blessed. But since that event, a lot has happened in my life. It's been quite a whirlwind since coming to Scottsdale.
Yes, it has. So before we dive into all that, we'll dive into and touch on certain things that you want to touch on. But you have been working on something the last several months. Is it something that you're ready to share?
Yes,
I'm
so grateful to share. So I have been working in public relations for 23 years, which is crazy to say, because I know we're in a world right now where not everybody can say that they've been doing something they love for that long. I started my career in Los Angeles, went through kind of the corporate PR world, have delved into multiple bouts of entrepreneurship in PR. And I think when I moved here from Los Angeles to Scottsdale, one thing that was very clear to me, I was getting in these rooms with so many amazing business owners, and everybody had great stories, like crazy good stories. Mm-hmm. And I would say to them, you need to tell that story, or you need to be more forward facing to your audience. And they would look at me like with so much fear, right? Like, what, me? Right? I thought that was only for the big brands.
Sure.
And so it prompted me to realize that there were so many amazing people here that I could help with this background I had from Los Angeles and working with big brands. And so the workshop series is where it started. I got to kind of connect one-on-one with small business owners, teach them that they're worthy of press, and then show them actually, if they can't afford an agency, how to garner opportunities on their own. And that's been amazing. I've been able to help thousands of business owners here through events, masterminds, one-on-one coaching, clients. But I think what happened for me, especially after losing my father a couple of years ago and then going through COVID, is that I started to think, how can I take this bigger? Right? Like, this is a bigger purpose of mine. It's innate for me to just connect people. It's a natural thing for me. I love to do it. I love to see people win. I love to cheer on the underdogs, right? So how can I get to all these people? Well, podcasting's one way. Certainly, we can reach more people. But I'd always, as a little girl, even my mom reminded me recently that I always talked about writing a book. And this year just felt like it was time. And so I wrote a book in the last 90 days. I don't recommend that to most people.
That sounds like a lot in 90 days.
It was a
3 months, 90 days.
A labor of love, but I did it so that I could get this out to more people. So anybody living anywhere at the end of September will be able to buy this book. And it literally takes my workshop that I teach here and teaches small business owners, no matter where you're based, how to learn how to dominate dominate your local media market so that you become known where you are first and foremost, because people need to know where you are, where you're based.
So it launches in September.
End of September.
September.
On Amazon.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Now, is it audio, paperback?
Paperback, self-published, just did this like very grassroots, but I have an amazing team behind me that I hired. House of Nectar has been helping me with the graphics and production and all of the branding. And I wrote the whole book, just poured my heart into it and share a lot of my personal story and then kind of move into this workshop. The reason I share the personal story though, which I know we'll get into a little bit, is because it's important for business owners, which I think a lot of people forget, to own their story. You have to own your story if you want people to connect with you. If you are a small business owner looking to reach new people, they need to know who you are as a human being. They need to understand what you've been through. They need to see how they can resonate with you. That's where the emotional connection comes. And so I felt it was important to share pivotal moments from my journey to give the small business owners permission to feel comfortable to share theirs.
Right. So September what? What's the date? Do you have a date?
So the last week of September. I can't give an exact date because I'm trusting the universe will give me just a week of, we'll call it a launch week, but the very last week of September, it will be available on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we just started talking about this, but I guess it makes sense because, well, for you, it probably seems like 3 months was really 6 because how many hours were you working on this every day?
So this process, I will say, as anybody who wants to write a book or anyone who commits to doing a podcast or anything in life, whether it's our health, our finances, the discipline was intense for this. I mean, I have worked straight for 3 months with no weekends off, carved out time during the week to writing every weekend. I knew that I was on a mission to get this out by a certain time, and I was going to do everything in my power to do it and hit that deadline.
You're a mission accomplisher. I know this about you, but I imagine that's a tremendous amount of work.
It was a lot.
So you look vibrant every time I see you, but you look more refreshed than the last time I saw you, which was in this coffee shop. And you were like
in the
thick of just completing it. And I knew you were working on something big. I can tell that now there's a sense of relief and excitement. So I'm so excited for you. And I'm so proud of you too.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's wild. We get these pings, right, from the universe. Launch the podcast, write a book, start a business, take a corporate job, travel, whatever. We have to follow them, and I think we all have enough evidence to know that when we get those pings now, we have to jump on whatever is tugging at us. And this is so purposeful and intentional, this podcast. The book this isn't a memoir about my life. I'm not saying I have the answers to everything. I'm trying to help people in a grander way, as you are. And I think that that's what we're all here for, is to use these God-given passions of ours and our gifts and the things that we love and that bring us joy, and to help connect, to help inspire more people.
Yes. So speaking of inspiration and books and stories, I know there's a story behind this book, your own personal story. So what was the inspiration and what led you to create this book?
This book. So the book is called You Are Worthy of Publicity. And I say that, as you know, you've been to my workshops, when I start my workshops off, because I think the biggest thing I've been fascinated about is the lack of worth that people have around these type of things, right? So you see a small business owner and I say to them, you're worthy of publicity. And they go, what, me? Oh, I thought it was only for the big brands. Or, oh no, I don't have enough followers. Or, oh, I'm not, making billions yet. But you're still worthy. And you're still worthy in the messy middle. You're still worthy in your startup mode. You're worthy of everything you desire. And I correlate this to publicity, but really this is a life game for all of us, people, right? Yeah. So the book theme is all about worth. And what I did was kind of go back to pivotal chapters in my life where I questioned my worth because of circumstances that I was going through, or I felt more worthy because of certain things. But the root of it really is that it's never about a press placement. It's never about an accolade. It's never about an award. It's never about hitting a certain number in your bank account. The worth is in our heart, and we are all worthy of having our dreams come true. We are all worthy of abundant lives. We are all worthy of being loved and being seen and being heard. But the reality is we have to give ourselves that. And that's what this kind of personal story is kind of themed around is, little girl Nicole, who used to sit and take her babysitting money and go to the newsstand and research magazines, right? So people ask how I fell into PR.
Oh, I was going to ask.
This has been in me. I have chills. I mean, since I'm a little girl, I've been fascinated with people's stories and movies and storytelling and reading magazines and wondering, how did these people get in there? And not knowing that there were people like myself
behind it
who put them there and helped get their story out in this grander way. So I've always been fascinated by this world. I think, what you'll read in the book is a lot of my corporate career, in LA, and that hustle and grind that a lot of my generation did because there was no alternative.
Right.
You went to college, you got a corporate job, it was climb the corporate ladder, go after the titles, go after the paycheck. And, what happened for me is that I was just living in what I can now say after a good decade of some true deep-rooted spiritual healing and trauma, energy work on myself and just understanding also my destiny more. That version of me, who I adore, was living on autopilot. She was just going through the motions. There wasn't a lot of intentionality because we didn't have people talking to us about intentionality. Nobody was saying, how do you feel today? Or nobody was asking us that, right?
Sure.
We were just going.
These are only recent topics we now discuss.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mindset wasn't a thing. It was, what can you accomplish? How fast can you get there? And are we checking things off the box? Right? Now, I happen to be very blessed to come from a very loving family who never put pressure on me. If anything, it was me putting it on myself. I think just feeling the society pressure. But, I was working and, a bridesmaid 13 times and celebrating everyone else. And then finally, thought I met my person and found myself at 35 years old, walking away from a very short-lived marriage and starting my life literally from zero, from scratch at 35, which, now I can honor the bravery of it. At the moment, it was, my whole world shattered. It was embarrassing. It was shameful. It was, how am I going to possibly come back from this? How do I rebuild from this? Mm-hmm. So I talk about that a lot in the book because I lost who I was in that process and I lost so much worth. I became this title now of a divorcee and, was so worried about what everyone was going to think when I actually just needed to take a pause, right? And I think for so many people, we have those rock bottom moments. That was one for me that really forced me to step back and think, like, what does Nicole want? For the first time at 35, I felt like I had been living on paper and outwardly what seemed like a great, successful, fabulous,
I love the paper checklist,
life.
So good sometimes.
She's got a great life. She's, killing it and whatever that means, right? But things were obviously falling apart. And so it took me some time to really sit with, where do I go from here? And then also tuning the noise out of the world, my environment, LA.
Difficult to do.
How do we actually get to a place where we can sit back and say, you know what? Maybe God actually has a different plan for me than those people, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with their path or mine, but mine might need to look different, or maybe it's going to look different, and maybe it's going to be better than I ever thought. But I was so in this mind frame of it has to go this way, and I have to live here, and I have to be married with kids by this age. And I think so many of us did that.
Those pressures are real.
it's very real. And so I talk about this a lot in the book, very vulnerably, because again, when we think about our worth, I felt worthless that at 35 years old, I wasn't married with 2 kids and living in, Pacific Palisades with the white picket fence. That was the dream.
Everyone says that's what we're supposed to do.
That was the dream. And by the way, that's a lovely dream. But I know that, there's more for me to experience. And so I started to rebuild, from scratch at 35. Within 2 years of that, I found myself just needing environmentally to get out of LA. And I came here, came to Scottsdale without knowing really anybody. I knew a couple of people from college because I had gone to U of A, but that was, at that point, it was, almost 20 years ago. I left my whole network. I left my identity. I left everything I knew behind and really took a brave risk to start anew in a city. But I felt that soul tug. And, I talk about this a lot in the book too, that I think as we go through life and we have more evidence and we have more experience, we know when we get those tugs, we've got to take the risk. We've got to go for it. And I told myself, if it doesn't work out, I'll go for a year and I'll move back. But something is pulling me. And when I got here, I realized just what a healing environment we are so blessed to live in here. I know coming in newer and not being someone who grew up here, I can see the environmental beauty that's just here. It's a very safe space, I think, for people to heal and be held here. Less chaotic day to day, right? Not 2 hours of traffic.
Sure.
A little different hustle and grind. So I got here and like I said, I started my business back up. I started to meet all these amazing business owners. Life was going great. I was thriving. I was traveling. Just such a beautiful kind of start here. And then my second year here, literally out of nowhere, one day my mom called me and my father had passed away suddenly. So that was a trauma and a moment in life that, you can never plan for. And I also talk about this a lot in the book that...
And he was young, wasn't he?
He was young. He was in his late 60s. He had been sick for a little bit, but I don't think any of us thought that, that was coming so soon. And, you go through life and you're going through work and you're building and you're doing and you're having all these high moments. And then something like that happens. And I compare it to the divorce in the sense that it was a soul death. Like I felt like I died with him, and I know it sounds so extreme and dramatic, but I think unless you've gone through something like this, it's hard to explain to people when someone is ripped from you suddenly and you're never going to see them again. It's horrible. Of course, it was so traumatic, and my parents were living in Palm Springs at the time, so I wasn't physically there to say goodbye to him, and that was something that I had to do a lot of work around. It's taken me almost 5 years, really, since that to get to this side of being back in the light. That was a really, really big blow to our family to have to rebuild energetically, keep my business afloat, be there for clients, be there for friends, and still try to navigate this whole new life now with a member of our family missing. And then a week after he passed away, we lost my grandfather, who was like a second father. So we had like a 10-day explosion in our family where, literally like the 2 captains of our ship, as I like to say, were just ripped from us. And it was horrible. It was a horrible time. I understand, everybody obviously goes through things. You don't anticipate these moments though, and nobody can really prepare for them. So it was a lot. And then a year and a half after that, the world shut down and we went into a global pandemic.
Gosh, I forgot all this was back to back like that.
So it was, we had, it was like the divorce, move here, build a new life, build a new business, lose dad, lose grandpa.
There's no reprieve. There's no reprieve.
No. And so, you saw, what happened. The stress of everything, certainly going into the pandemic, I had just spent several years busting my butt to build a business up and get it into such a good place. My whole business went down within two days, like most people's.
It's wild.
I went from having 6 clients to 1, and I lost my whole income, and I was in absolute fight or flight survival mode, as I know a lot of us have been at various times. And so I talk about too in the book, like what did that look like also as a single woman, to navigate all this alone and to
That gives me anxiety just thinking about it, actually.
It's a lot. My mom read the book and she said, my God, like reading this, I'm exhausted that you had to go through all of this and such, because it was, it's like you look at a thing of dominoes and that's how it felt. It was just like someone was knocking the dominoes down for, really my last decade. It's been a decade. But what I talk about in the book and what
Not
I'm
funny.
thrilled to share though is that, if someone would have said, Nicole, let me give you a snapshot of what these next 2 years are going to like, I would have ran the other way, right? Nobody wants to work through these moments, but we have to. And I honored in the moment how I was feeling. Those were not good moments and it was very difficult.
How did you let's pause for a quick second. How did you get through that? Was there someone that you were able to rely on? Were you going to therapies, healing work?
Yeah.
What? Because that is a lot.
Yeah. It was so much trauma, and so much energy. And I knew that this required help. Like this was not
You knew.
I can't just self-soothe at home and like be like, I'm fine. No. I mean, this was like podcasts weren't going to help, reading a book wasn't going to help.
And you still had clients. You still had to act like, I hate to say that, but It's like when you have clients, there is a piece of you that you are, you're in performance mode. You're working and you've got to be good.
You've got to be good. You've got to produce. You've got to keep things moving forward. And so when we think about the energy of that's required, and then you have grief and you have pain and you have uncertainty and you're stressing about making sure, family members are okay and your own health. And this was just like, it was like a ping pong, right? I felt so, the opposite of grounded, right? Just the furthest thing from grounded. I felt like I was just like being treading water in a blender. So,
wow.
But we know some amazing souls here in town who thank goodness for them. I was going through a lot of healing work, energy work, breath work, trauma healing, doing a lot of extensive work to heal inner child Nicole, go back to talking to my father in therapy sessions as if he was still here, getting all the things out that I needed to say, coming to grips with the fact that I couldn't be there to say goodbye and kind of getting through all the things I wish I had said. It was so much. And this went on for a couple of years with a lot of different modalities. And I'm so grateful that I had people to hold space for me in that way, because to no fault of friends or family, but everybody's going to go through their own experience with these things, right? And I know for me, I needed a lot of safe space. I needed a lot of healing, and I needed a certain kind of support and healing. So I poured a lot of money and energy and time into resources that I knew it was not going to be fun to have these conversations or face these certain things, but I needed to do it because I knew what was on the other side of it, which is where I'm at now, right?
It's incredible that you recognized that, though.
Thank you.
Truly.
But it was exhausting.
I imagine.
Anyone that was here that saw me, I gained a lot of weight. I just, my body shut down. I was not myself. And I think it was evident to everyone. I think
you were still beautiful and incredible, but you were not yourself. I remember we had some serious conversations.
I was not myself. But when we talk about worth too.
Well, you were evolving into something.
Yeah.
It was changing.
Yeah.
Becoming a different Nicole.
100%. But that also did a number on me mentally, because you start going, okay, wait a minute. Like, what's happening to my body now? Why is all this stress? There were so many things, right? And so, now as a 44-year-old woman on the other side of a lot of this,
you made it to the other side.
Those chapters and seasons were so important. I could not be sitting here today as an author, as, stepping into higher self Nicole, who is so embraced in her authenticity and so comfortable with who she is, only because of all of that work that I did, right? Because I know that this isn't about, the checklist anymore. This is about me continuing to share my truth as you are. We have to just be who we are. We have to fall in love with that and know that we are going to have very difficult seasons in life. Nobody is free from that. Mine happened to all be kind of at once, but I believe that we're okay for a bit, and I'm going to get a breather.
You're okay for a bit,
right? But also, too, what happens from all these seasons? I mean, you've been through so much as well. It's like we know how to handle adversity now. We know how to handle the difficult seasons. Maybe we don't discombobulate in a way that we once would have. We have more tools. We have more awareness. Doesn't make it easy. Still really difficult to face difficult times, but
it helps to be able to remember that in that moment when you are in a difficult season, that it doesn't last. It's not going to last forever.
It's temporary.
Could be long.
Yep.
But it's temporary.
It's all temporary, and you become a victor in
Love that.
the victim, which is okay. I think there's this conversation going on like, oh, don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. It's like, well, wait a minute. Well, no, you can be a victim and you are entitled to honor the pain that you are in through circumstances. It's about not staying there, right? So absolutely, I was going through a lot and I was okay to say, this is not a good time. I knew I wasn't going to sit there, but I also needed to be authentic to how I was feeling. I couldn't just mask it and say, I'm great.
Well, then we're not getting through. I mean, you're not getting through it.
No.
And you wouldn't be where you are right now unless you, and through this whole podcast, I keep using the phrase feel to heal, even though it's awful and terrible in those time frames, if you don't feel to heal and then feel and go through the process of what it is to get through those emotions, you would not be sitting here right now and able to look back on that and then able to put that all into a book to help and encourage other people.
Yeah, we have to be okay in these difficult moments. And by the way, the overarching theme at that part of the book is that you're still worthy even in your darkest seasons. When you feel like nothing is, possible anymore, or you don't deserve good. Of course you do, to your point, those are temporary seasons, right? So how do we stay in our value? How do we stay in our worth, even in the difficult times? And that's kind of what the story kind of wraps up with, leading into this business part of reminding business owners that you have to be forward facing and you can't hide anymore. We're here to do big things. We are not here to play small. And even in your messy seasons of being a business owner or your messy seasons of life, you still need to dig deep somehow and remember that somebody needs to hear what your message is. Yeah. Somebody, even if it's one person, it doesn't need to be 400 people yet, but even if one person hears something and they resonate with it, or you're able to help them, my God, like that's it.
Well, I truly cannot wait to read this. I hope you have some sort of launch party because I will absolutely be there. I know you will because you're in PR. So you're going to have some sort of launch party. Who am I talking to? Of course, you're going to have a launch party. I cannot wait to read it.
You're the best.
Because you're in PR, I know that you always have. There's always some sort of forward thinking something that you have. So what is, this has been a big thing.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not even launched yet.
Right.
You're in the pre-launch, almost up to the launch phase. But I know that there's something maybe in the forefront of your mind. I don't even want to say the back of your mind, forefront of your mind of what is next for Nicole Myden.
Yeah, great question. I for sure wouldn't have been able to answer it 2 or 3 years ago. But I think, again, through all of this, my purpose has become a lot more clear in realizing that I am the purpose. You are the purpose. And so when you sit with that and know, okay, nobody is going to deliver a message the way I am. Nobody's going to deliver a message the way you, Amanda, will. What is God using me for through all of these experiences, right? To storytell. And so I believe that there is a bigger play for me to be more outward in the world, sharing this message on stages, connecting more with women, reminding them especially they're not alone, and just being that nurturer that I am in the world, right? So it's not going to be about me sitting behind a desk and pitching people for the next couple of years. I think we're coming into a season now where I am going to, use this book and the energy of it and the message to hopefully shift me into, a whole new kind of chapter for me.
Yes.
Which is very exciting.
It is very exciting. And how do we find you?
Yes. On Instagram. The best place to message me at Nicole Myden. You can find out more about the book there. I'm starting to promote it. So anything you want to know about the book, you can find there. That's the best place for right now. I would say Instagram.
Perfect. And there will be a link in the bottom of the episode, as always, and on YouTube, where you can easily click and find Nicole.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on today and sharing. I'm so excited about the book, and I'm so excited for you. That's a wrap, everybody. Thanks for listening to You're It Girl.